Hello, this is Gray Hughes of Gray Hughes Investigates on YouTube. Well, believe it or not, the Kohbergers have found another angle. First, they were really excited about the footage in Pullman, Washington, in the early morning hours, right around 2:44 and 2:53, of a vehicle looking strikingly similar to Bryan Kohberger's White Elantra. But this vehicle had fog lights. They were so excited, as if it was some huge revelation that solves the case, even though every other shot of the Elantra shows the plastic insert, especially, on the versions that you can see clearly. You can see the plastic insert because Bryan Kohberger didn't have fog lights. Now they go, "You were wrong, Gray. You were wrong, Gray." We were all wrong until the new surveillance came out, and there were fog lights on the vehicle at 2:44. Now, this information was in the probable cause document, but it was a very insignificant portion of the probable cause. It wouldn't have changed the judge's mind. You only need 51% in a probable cause of weight of the facts, and they already had the cell phone pinging in the southeast portion of Pullman, and then the phone being turned off at 2:54. And then you have a White Elantra that doesn't have fog lights pulling into Indian Hills Drive, etc. And then Bryan Kohberger's DNA was on the knife sheath found inside the house. Therefore, the White Elantra driving around, missing its front plate, was Bryan Kohberger's. All right, so the probable cause was not in jeopardy, and there was no Franks hearing sought by the defense team, which would have... Franks hearings are for... attempting to prove that if a certain piece of evidence that was in the probable cause was in error, would that have changed the decision by the judge to grant the probable cause? And it just isn't the case here. Ann Taylor knew that. The evidence was overwhelming against Bryan Kohberger. But the new information now is the screams that you can hear coming from 1112 King Road. Now, they'll tell you, how do you know it's coming from there, Gray? It could be coming from 1122 King Road, where the murders happened. And if you have no common sense, you might actually believe something like that. But there is one scream at the beginning that's really loud. And I don't know about you, but most of us have been to parties and hung out with friends, and sometimes girls scream, sometimes guys yell. There's all kinds of stuff going on when people are drinking, all right? The sound file signature also is much louder when these people are making their sounds than the supposed sounds that you hear coming from 1122 King Road later. I mean, we do hear audio over there. It's much lower. And the reason you can hear it loudly is a lot of people boost up the audio so that you can hear it, but it's much lower. So let's get started on this right now, and I'll compare it to what's really going on with the timeline. Here is the first instance. See how loud that is? That's coming from this house. Now there's that blood-curdling sounding scream right there. Of course, it has to be a murder, but look what time it is. It's 2:27. Now, if we go to this timeline here, at 2:10, Dylan Mortensen sends a text message to the Uber driver to see if he was still driving. And then at 2:13, the Uber driver responded, confirming he was driving, but Dylan never responded back. All right? And then some of the stuff I fill in the gap because these are things that happen in between specific times. All right? But the times that we can verify is Kaylee begins calling her boyfriend Jack at 2:26, 1 minute before that scream. Okay, so she's over in her room. So as we know, it was Dylan, Bethany, and Madison all went downstairs to let Murphy out. Dylan went to bed. Bethany and Madison went outside, but it was too cold, so Bethany came back inside and went to her room, which is on the first floor. And then Madison stayed outside with Murphy. All right, now about 2:26, Kaylee begins calling her boyfriend Jack while laying in her bed because she says, I'm going to go to bed, and she's calling her boyfriend. She was already ready for bed when the other three went downstairs. Whether or not she's laying in bed or sitting in bed, Her bed was, it looked slept in when the police went there the next day. So she was in there and she tried to call her boyfriend, Jack. And then there's some other interactions. Bethany's in her bed watching Baby Daddy. And then Madison asks Bethany through the door if she'd seen Murphy. And then Madison goes to her room, probably right around like 2:36. And then 2:40, Madison likely gets into her bed because at 2:43, Kaylee goes to Madison's room to have her call Jack as well. And Kaylee got into the same bed with Madison. That's why they ended up being in the same bed. And then Kaylee calls Jack for the 6th time at 2:44. And then at 2:44, Madison begins calling Jack. And then at 2:52, Madison calls Jack for the 3rd time. And then 2:52, Kaylee calls Jack for the final time. And 2:53, Madison calls Bethany. And then 2:54, cast data shows Kohberger has turned off his phone in Southeast Pullman, Washington. All right, so let's get back to the clips here. All right, so this is what it sounded like. And see how you can hear audio without it? I'm not even boosting up the audio. This is how it comes naturally. All right, and then there's a whole bunch of other times where you can see them talking. You can see the waveform down here. See at the bottom of the screen? See how it's taller right there? I can probably make this so it's easier to see the variance. There you go. So see how it's loud there. Watch. Yeah, and see, the reason you can hear everything so easily is because it's inside of this house and there's people still awake, partying, talking, laughing, having fun. Now here's another instance. And this is at 2:38. So that's 2:38, right? So the first one was 2:27. And then there's another instance where there's people having fun, yelling. You can see it right there. All right, let's go to the next one. Here's another one. This is 2:40. So again, if you look at the timeline at 2:40, that's just Kaylee goes to Madison's room and they start calling Jack. It has nothing to do with anything. See, it's a different house. The house that this camera's at is 1112 King Road. Where the murders happened was 1122 King Road. So this audio that you're hearing has absolutely nothing to do with the murders of Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, Madison, Mogen, and Kaylee Goncalves. So let's move it forward again. Here we go. Here's this one. So what I did was I put in there, this is like a regular, like, see, these are just people partying right here. Let me turn off this audio here. Watch. This is what it sounds like. You see that right there? That could have been exactly what they were doing down there, taking photographs of each other and just being, hey, and just making sounds because they're having a good time. All right, now let's turn that back on, and then I'm going to mute this and listen what it sounds like in here, you guys. Here, listen. Just listen to this. See, that was a guy right there saying, hey. And you can see it, look at, it's really close to the camera because of the wave files right here. Now let's take a look at another instance. Move it forward, and here we go. We're right around 2:42. Listen. That's 2:42. Madison and Kaylee. I mean, this is 242. Kohberger's cast data shows he's still at his house at that time. And then 243, Kaylee goes to Madison's room, etc. You know, I think that's when she went there, because at 244, Madison begins calling Jack. And they both migrated over to Madison's room, but we don't actually know exactly, precisely what was going on there, but we do know that they're on the phone trying to get hold of Jack, trying to get him to come over to hang out, because Kaylee was drunk and, you know, probably wanted some company. All right, so let's get back to this. Here we go. This is 242. All right, now watch. I'm going to mute this, and let me play this other audio over here. Here we go. Now, there's no there's no music you can hear in the background, but it's exactly the same type of sound, right? This is what happens when people are drinking. It happens every single party you go to. Listen. See that? They're just having fun there. It's crazy, you guys. I mean, the fact that these people are making a big deal about it, they're so desperate. They have to try to find something to, oh my God, the murders actually happened earlier. So to believe that, you'd have to believe that all of the phone calls that Madison, Mogen, and Kaylee made to Jack were somehow set up by a killer. And then you'd have to believe that later on at 4 o'clock in the morning, when the DoorDash driver came over, Xana Kernodle was absolutely aware that there were people in the house that had already been murdered, but she's going to go ahead and have a meal anyways. And then you have to believe that Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk are somehow involved in, you know, hiding it all from every single other person. And it's just absolutely ludicrous, you guys. But the people who believe Kohberger's innocent, they've lost the ability to rationalize and think clearly for a very, very long time. So here's another instance. See that right there? You know, they're just having fun. This is 250. So there's just this continuing, long, brutal, in a 23-minute period, there's all these people being stabbed and all this crazy stuff going on and screaming. And the murders really happened around that time. And then eventually they end up leaving the house just casually. Like, hey, all right, see ya. See you guys later. I mean, it's actually funny how ludicrous some of the arguments people make, but people buy it hook, line, and sinker because they want to. It's really scary. All right, let's see what this one is. Oh yeah, so let's compare. This is what I was going to do with this part. So see all these other high waves over here, all these peaks? Those are them making noise at 1112 King Road, right where this camera is, all right? Now look right here. This is where we start hearing people at 1122 King Road. See how low this area is right there? The only reason you hear it high sometimes is because people boost it up. This is 415. And I'll fast forward a little bit here. This is the natural sound that you're listening to. See that? You can hear that voice. Now what people have done, and I've done it, you know, boost it up to see if you can hear it better. So, you know, you might click on it like that and then boost up the audio. Let's make it, 20 because it's so low. And then let's listen to it. So that does sound like a voice there, but I had to boost it up way up comparatively to the 1112 King Road audio. And this right here is 1122 King Road. This is where the murders happen. And then right here is 1112 King Road. The camera's right in front there. And Xana Kernodle's bedroom is right around in this area. And that's why you can hear some audio, through this little corridor and right over here. But the audio inside this house is much louder. That's why it has a much taller audio signature. So let's play this part again. Look what the natural level is. See how low that is on the screen? And then if we go back to when you sort of hear more partying, it's like this, see? Or that's actually a vehicle, but let's go right into this area. Now it's another vehicle. It's 4. I guess we have to go way back here. Maybe right in here. See, this is 347. And the DoorDash driver hasn't even been there yet. See how you can see it really clearly. Look how large this audio signature is, how high it is up on there. You can hear it naturally. And then way over here, this is inside 1122 King Road. See, now let's continue to listen to it. The only thing that you can hear really more loudly is the thud of the nightstand next to Ethan Chapin when Xana Kernodle was attacked and flew into it. But listen, this is the natural sound. The reason we can always hear it in the videos that people put out is because they've boosted up that part. Murphy barking. And you can see, look how quiet it is other than Murphy barking. Now Murphy apparently is outside the house barking on, I think, the deck. See, and I think that's Xana right there. I think this is Xana right here. Really low audio signature. Now that's loud because it's a loud thumping sound because furniture hit the nightstand in the house. And now you hear the dog barking, and then Kohberger leaves the home really closely to this time frame right here. And look at this right here, by the way, if you're interested. See, this is all dog barking. Look how long it just keeps barking and barking all the way up until 4:49, which is at this point Kohberger's phone pings near Blaine. But man, Murphy just kept barking and barking and barking, and it didn't start barking until right around in this time frame here, as things were developing inside the house. But I hope this shows you that it's just absolute nonsense, you guys. These people are grasping at straws, trying to make anything seem like it's something else, and it doesn't make any sense at all. All right? So use common sense, everybody. Try to find places that put out the truth. Now, when they'll say, well, Gray, you put out the video of the surveillance footage at 2:44. Yeah, I put it out there because it was in the probable cause. I ordered it, and I got it, and I put it in the video. But I didn't realize at the time that there's a fog light issue. People pointed out. We looked into it. Turns out Kohberger's vehicle doesn't have a fog light. And, by the way, the prosecutor was not going to use that at trial. Okay, it was irrelevant to them, and the defense team also was aware of that, and they didn't make an issue out of it because they knew it wasn't a very significant point or portion of the case. All right, well, thank you all very much for watching. If you could hit that like button for me, that would be great. And as I always say, until next time, be safe out there.